I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I just ask you to remain standing? Pastor Basio would give our invocation tonight.
Let's pray. Lord, we're grateful for your presence, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve. And we pray blessing over this city and all of its leadership, and we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Clerk would take the roll, please.
Councilman Templin.
Here.
Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman DeGiulio.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavarecki.
Present.
Councilman Rourke.
Here.
Madam Pro Tem McLeod.
Here.
Treasurer Armstrong.
Here.
And Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Made it by the hair on our chinny chin chin. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda for motion by, moved by Councilman Cisco, supported by Mayor Pro Tem McLeod.
Me.
Nope.
No.
Councilwoman Gavrecki. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is there any additions, changes, deletions?
Yes, I want to separate claims and accounts there, Mr. Mayor.
Without objections, we will take claims and accounts out of the consent agenda and take it as a separate item. Hearing no other changes to be made, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for October 24th. A motion.
Support.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McLeod, supported by Councilman DeGiulio. Are there any changes, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Tonight we are going to have two new officers for the police department sworn in, Christopher Arnoldi and Jordan Cutting, and our mayor, Chief Wilkowitz, will come forward and make the
Mayor, all right.
presentation.
I know you got promoted.
Oh, no, that's a demotion. Mayor Wilkowitz.
Thank you for the promotion, Mayor. Now there's two of us.
Can we swap salaries?
That we cannot do. Good night, Mayor and Council. I come before you tonight with two of our newest officers. Both are recent graduates from the Wayne County Regional Police Academy. They had their graduation last Thursday night. After a long and rigorous academy session, both of these young officers did very well in the police academy. Officer Christopher Arnoldi was the recipient of the Chiefs Award at the ceremony last Thursday, and that is for expressing his commitment and dedication to pursuing law enforcement as his career from a very young age. All 57 academy participants wrote an essay, and his was selected by a panel of chiefs, and he received the Chiefs Award. He also was the recipient of the Patrick O'Rourke Scholarship. If that name sounds familiar to you, Patrick O'Rourke was a police officer for West Bloomfield who was killed in the line of duty. His family had set up a scholarship fund, and Christopher Arnoldi was selected to be the recipient as well. Jordan Cutting did very well in his training as well. In the firearms portion of the academy, he was an honorable mention. He came in second place out of the 57 recruits at the academy as far as his proficiency in firearms use and instruction. So they both did very well. And I'm pleased to bring them both in front of you today to have them take their oaths of office. It's one of my greatest pleasures in this line of work is to bring these young officers on. It's kind of funny because a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I was at the other end of this with Lieutenant Soden and Lieutenant Egan. They were graduating from the Executive Leadership School, getting ready to take over at the top end of the police department. And then the following week, I was attending the academy graduation for two officers just beginning their career. And, you know, in between there is the dash, which is your career, which is very short because it goes by in a hurry. I was told that by Bill O'Donnell when I got hired here in 1995. He said, basically, don't blink, because it's going to go over, it's going to be over before you know what happened. So without further ado, I'd like to bring forth Officers Arnaldi and Cutting and the city clerk to administer their oath of office. Thank you.
Gentlemen, stand right there. No need to repeat the whole thing after me. Just at the end, say, I do, I swear, or I affirm, whichever one you feel most comfortable with. All right, gentlemen, raise your right hand. Do you, Jordan Cutting, and you, Christopher Arnaldi, do solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that you will endeavor to secure and maintain an honest and efficient administration of the affairs of the city of Allen Park, free from partisan distinction or control, and that you will perform the duties of full-time police officers to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do. I swear.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I know.
The haircuts all are very similar, but when you look around the eyes, there's a little difference in the. Again, officers, thank you very much for agreeing to serve our citizens. We'll move to organizational business, and the city administrator will give his report, please.
Yeah, we're putting that stuff at the end from now on. I can never compete with that. Mike, we gotta move that to the bottom of the
put them
agenda.
back.
Bottom of the agenda.
How do you follow that?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents of Allen Park. Working with our interim DT Energy Government Affairs Manager, DT contractor has been making repairs to Allen Road near Belmont Avenue. I say interim. We normally work with Madeline Williams, as many of you know, and she is out of the office until after the first of the year at a minimum. So I hope if it's a health-related issue, she's a good recovery here. We definitely miss her. The contractors for the street improvement millage, street sectioning, CDBG street improvement programs are finished for this construction season. The utility repair work, which is the water main breaks and the sewer repairs, they should be wrapping up at the end of this week for the most recent list that they were given. DPS and Liquiforce will start lining some sewer line sections in December, and they'll be going throughout the month of January. They will notify the affected neighborhoods before they start work, so everybody will get a heads up that they're going to be in their neighborhood. We had a collapsed sewer at Quant Avenue and Cleveland Avenue. That has been repaired. We're waiting to be able to backfill the hole, and then they'll be able to rebuild that manhole and replace the concrete. So that should be done here within the next few days. But I believe they found that when they were doing the sewer lining with Liquiforce. So that was able to catch that before it became a bigger issue. The contractor for the water main lining on Leach Street has started working on the pits to install the liner. Tomorrow they will clean the old water main line out and be ready to install the new line on Thursday. Pending all the required tests, they should be able to tie back into the water system sometime next week. Parks and Recreation's Department's rededication ceremony of the Allen Park Sports Hall of Fame at the Allen Parks Community Center was held on October 30th. Tremendous turnout. I believe we had somewhere between 200 and 250 people. I think it was a pretty fun for me to stand there and listen to the stories that the people were telling as they seen old coaches sitting amongst the members, the inducted members into the Hall of Fame. They were able to share a story of their youth, or their getting into the coaching industry. So it was really a nice event. Kudos to the Parks and Rec Department for that effort. Some great news: Allen Park Bulldogs, the varsity football teams and the junior varsity football teams, they won their league championships with the Downriver Junior Football League. Unfortunately, the freshman team came up a little short, but they still had a tremendous season. I believe they lost 19-6. I think the other varsity or junior varsity was 52-6, and there was another one. There was quite a big spread. So, good job by the Allen Park Bulldogs, and I think that just is a great feeder program, and that's why the high school has such a great football program year after year after year. So, kudos to them. The police department and the DDA, they hosted a crime prevention seminar for the downtown businesses last night at the coffee house, the city coffee house. I didn't get a report on that, but so I assume everything went well. And we able to work with the DDA, the police department, to do a presentation, almost like a cop on the block, but they did it at the city coffee house, as opposed to trying to shut down Allen Road or Park Avenue. So it worked out very well. There was a lot of excitement, I know, initially going into it. So hopefully the turnout was well worth it as well. Plant Moran is wrapping up the annual city audit. You'll hear cheers from Amanda when that happens. She is very happy to see them leave the City Hall offices. They should be ready for a presentation at one of the December meetings. I'm not too sure if it'll be the 12th or the 19th just yet, but as we get a little bit closer, we'll know and be able to get everybody be able to schedule that for a study session. The Lady Christmas Parade on Park Avenue will be held this coming Friday, the 17th of November. It starts at 6:30. Prior to that, I think this is going to be the first time ever, Historical Commission will be hosting a Christmas tree lighting at 6 o'clock at the Historical House. That's on the corner of Inglewood and Park Avenue. And so stop over there first, watch the tree lighting, and then be able to watch the parade. You're right in the general vicinity anyway, so you're at the beginning of the parade, perfect timing. And so that's at 6 o'clock for the tree lighting, 6:30 for the lighted parade. There'll be a pancake breakfast with Santa. It's a fundraiser on Sunday, December 3rd from 11 to 2. That's at the fire station, and that's going to support the Allen Park Firefighters Charities. The cost is $5, and the children under 2 are free for that event. And then for the City Hall and Police Department project update, the footings for the front of the building, front addition have been poured. The detention area, the jail cell area, concrete floor has also been poured. The metal stud walls for the council chambers, the conference room, and are nearly all installed. They were working on the soffits today. We're building the police department locker rooms, and so they're moving their way into the PD side now. That was the only area. They're waiting for that concrete to cure. They'll be putting the block wall in for the evidence room and the jail cells. They want to let that cure about a week, so they should be starting block, I believe, at the end of this week or first of next week for the interior. And they'll also be ready to start putting the block on the exterior of the building as well. So you'll actually start seeing some structure go up in the front. They're on schedule to do all that work, and I think they're still on schedule to get us in there in the springtime. I have a date in my mind. I think Mr. Katie has a date in his mind. I don't know if we have lunch on that yet, but we'll probably put a lunch bet on that and see what comes closest. But I believe we'll be out of here right around the time our contract expires with our lease here. So it's going to be very, very, very close. I got a phone call. First, Allen Park Civic Arena hosting high school hockey. Tomorrow, November 15th, Cabrini has a home game against Airport, starting time at 7 o'clock. The 24th of November, Allen Park has a home game. That's their first home game against Carlson. That is also at 7 o'clock, and I believe that is part of a Thanksgiving tournament. And they'll be playing the winner of, anybody want to help me back there? Southgate, maybe? We don't know. they're gonna be in the championship game, so plan on being there the 25th of November as well. 7 o'clock, that's gonna be the championship game, Allen Park and somebody. And then, but they'll be in that game, just plan on being there. It's okay, you can go. And then, real quick, I got a phone call, and from a resident. I didn't get her name. She didn't want to share her name, but she wanted to put a public thank you to Tanya Jett. That's our ordinance officer. And she appreciated Tanya's efforts. She was having some work done at her house. Tanya drove by, found they didn't have a permit. The contractor had to come in here to get the permit and so forth. And she just wanted to thank Tanya and the city and the code enforcement officers for looking out for the senior citizens of this community. So I do want to thank Tanya. She's done a wonderful job. Jack DeRocher does a wonderful job. Ken Simmerly does a wonderful job. They get a little bogged down sometimes with the amount of work, but I just want to make sure we do publicly thank Tanya and even Jack and Ken for all their hard efforts all through the summertime as well.
Any questions to the city administrator? Harry, yes. Councilman Cisco.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Hammond can clarify this, but I guess I would direct it towards Mr. Kibbe, is that the joint sealing program that we have, who is responsible for that?
Yeah, so I talked to Steve on that. That is actually not, we don't have a joint sealing program per se. That is the contractor going back and sealing those joints when they put that new concrete in. And I think one of the issues may have been an overband, may have been the concern. I think there was a little bit more tar coming out of the hole, out of the joint than normal. And if that does become an issue where the plow peels that out in the over the winter time, we'll have them come back in the springtime to reseal that.
Well, I don't know a lot about it, and so that's kind of why I'm asking, is that when they do it, when they put the joint sealer in, does it come to the surface of the street, or is it supposed to be below the surface of the street, and then at some point it rises?
Well, basically, on a new street, the process is, they take a saw, they saw cut the joints, and then they clean them, and then they come back and they put the sealer in. And usually they're supposed to leave it 1/8 of an inch below the surface of the road. That's for, expansion and things like that, so it doesn't, in the summertime, it doesn't expand all the way up and get pulled out by the tires. Apparently, when they were sealing, the guy the person who did it wasn't careful and overfilled them, and also he had a few drips and things like that on the road. So basically, it's a punchless item. We're withholding the money. We're going to take a look at it in the spring, see how it did. If this, if it looks as though that the snowplow might have pulled some of it up or still not right, we'll have them come back and redo it.
So, all the joints, no matter which way they run, are supposed to be below surface.
Yes, they are.
And the person who's doing the joint sealing, I know Gaglio does the work.
Yeah.
Do they subcontract that out?
Usually, I'm not sure with them because, each contractor does it a little differently. They usually use their own people to do it.
And is it normal to go back and inspect that stuff, or is it just a given that it's done?
No, usually they do it and then we go back and we take a look and see, make sure everything's okay in the final inspection, the final walkthrough.
So my concerns are good.
Yes, you are right.
Well, I wouldn't say I was right.
Well, no, you
Is that I'm
observed
not a
something
real
that
expert on this stuff at all,
didn't look
so-
right, you brought it up, and it's not supposed to be like that.
When you get to asphalt, you may see a little bit different of a process. That may be an overband where they'll
Yeah,
they'll cut the joint out and then they'll go over maybe about
Over
a
it.
2 or 3 inch width.
Yeah.
And you'll see that along, Dick's Toledo had that done a number of years ago. Allen
Yeah.
Roads had that done a number of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you see all the squiggly
Yeah, you'll just see
lines,
it
looks
all
like a
over the
snake
place.
and stuff like that.
And the actual joint sealing
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah.
is that expensive or not expensive?
No, it's not too expensive.
Is it just-
Usually, it ranges in price, probably for them, probably around 35 to 40 cents a foot.
Okay.
And it all depends on who they do it. sometimes, some people feel, little is good, more is better, and filling it all the way up and over the top is best. Because it all depends on who tells them and stuff like that. But it's all part of their unit price for the work. So if they overfill, they're losing money.
So if, what we don't want is water getting in there.
No, we want it to seal, we want to keep the water, the salt, and everything like that from freezing and jointing and causing it to spall and crack and more water to get down in there. And, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You get a great point. That was the problem that we had with the ASR, the alkaline silica reaction, where the water was being introduced to the silica, causing the gelling and the cracking. That's what you see on Rosedale.
Rosedale's bad.
Rosedale is bad.
Yeah.
Any other questions by council? I do have one on the item 6 on the LEAP water main lining. Are the residents on that line going to be without water until sometime next week?
No, they have temporary, nobody's affected at this point. She says no one's affected.
Well, they're doing they're installing the pit to install the liner, but they're cleaning the old water line, I'm assuming starting
Are they on
Wednesday.
temporary water, Bruce?
The area that they're doing it between two valves, there's nobody connected to that portion of the line, so, nobody will be impacted
There's
by
no
not having
houses on
water.
that. There's no houses on that section.
Nope. So the process is, they dig, today they dug the pits, they'll, at the valves, cut into the line, they'll put looks like a bullet almost. It's like a brush, and they have the water force it through, and they clean all the scale out of the line, so it's smooth. And then they go back through and they pull looks like a big sock through it all. It's woven impregnated fiberglass. They put hot water in it, it expands, it adheres to kind of adheres to the outside of the pipe. And then it cures, and it's a hard fiberglass lining. It's like a pipe inside of a pipe.
It doesn't adhere to the outside of the pipe, it adheres to the inside?
Yeah, it goes inside the pipe.
internal
It's all
process.
internal.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And they can do that? Those valves, where do those lines go? Doesn't the water has to pass through one valve to the other and?
Yeah, where it's going, it's looped, water comes from both directions,
Oh,
so it
okay,
can
so
go,
it's-
water can go either direction.
That's fine.
So it's
All right.
coming up to the valves and stopping, and there's nobody in between, so.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Do we have a motion to accept and file the updates reports?
Motion.
Support.
Councilman Cisco has moved, and Councilwoman Yavarecki has supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. I'm going to remember this time, it's public comment time, and have all the citizens that wish to address the council to please come forward, and the rules of decorum for commenting or questioning are on the back of the agendas that you have, so I hope you will adhere to those rules. Anybody want to come forward and speak?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Carl Sim, Allen Park resident. So a lot of good news tonight. Hired 2 new officers. Report sounds good. So since we've had an emergency financial manager, the city's doing much better. We've added 2 people at the Department of Public Works. We've added to Parks and Recreation. We've added to our police department. Different areas of the city have gotten their raises. Everything's going good. We're building a new city hall, new police department. We're getting new streets. But along with all that good news, there's some very troubling news. And it was brought to my attention. I don't know how many people, citizens in Allen Park, are aware of it, but we have a fire department that has not had a contract for 16 months. They also are behind on the raises that they're supposed to have, which is monetary. It's 2-something%, which is basically cost of living. But I would like to know why. I don't necessarily expect an answer tonight at this meeting, but it's very concerning that we have a fire department that's not being able to negotiate a contract. I've talked with the president of the firefighters union. I've talked with the president of my union. the president of my union of the IBEW has assured me that we most definitely can stand behind their union and help them in this issue, whether it be to talk to them about what they might need from us to help negotiate or to get this more publicly known is why they don't have a contract. So hopefully this is something that we can get rectified and get on. I would like to know anybody that I could contact from the city to get more information about what's going on with that, because I don't want it to be just one-sided information that I'm getting. I'd like to hear from both sides on this, but it is something that I am most definitely, as a strong union member, I am going to stay on top of this. Thank you.
Good evening, Dennis Hayes, Carter Avenue. I was here the last couple meetings and I was talking about the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission. Of course, the last meeting I was enjoyed rather aggressive, I would call it an attack. My feelings weren't so sensitive, I might have been upset. But Mr. Mizzy accused me of just raking up trouble or causing a ruckus or whatever. I'd like to think that I was just asking a question. I would like to think that citizens are entitled to ask questions without being challenged like that. I still believe there's a problem there. I'm probably not going to get an answer out of any of you because you've convinced yourselves that there's no problem, so that's fine. But I heard something else that last meeting that disturbed me quite a lot. Mr. Lloyd got up and he spoke to the fact that he didn't want to ever hear about the emergency manager. And Carl, you didn't get the memo, so you shouldn't have brought that up tonight. He doesn't want to hear about the emergency manager. He didn't want to hear about the fact that we were insolvent and had to have an emergency manager. I just want to suggest that for the benefit of the students who need to learn about their government, they might want to consider and I probably can't quote it exactly, but the philosopher George Santayana, the Spanish philosopher, told us in so many words, if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it, or you're condemned to repeat it. This is our history. Our history includes the fact that we had an emergency manager. Whether you like it or not, we had one. If we don't learn from what happened during that episode of time, we disserve ourselves, and most particularly the students who have to learn about government in a government class. There's a lot of things. You know, right now there's a lot of people never want to hear the word President Trump again. And there's probably another group of people don't want to hear President Obama again. And there's people don't want to know about General Lee or General Grant or George Custer's statue in Monroe, which will be torn down invariably in the next year or so. There's a lot of things we don't like that are unpleasant in our history. But we need to acknowledge it and move forward and recognize what lessons are taken from those episodes. And I think Mr. Lloyd's a genuine individual, probably an excellent teacher. But I think if we send that message to our youngsters particularly who are studying their city government, their state government, the fact that we had an act that allowed for that, the governor implemented it, that's part of our government too. So let's all just be aware that there are historical events that happen in all our lives, in all our history. I don't like to hear about the Vietnam War. I lost a brother there. I don't like to hear about the Holocaust. I have many Jewish friends. But the fact is, these are realities. And there are people who will deny those things. They will deny the Holocaust. They'll deny the Armenian genocide. But we have to recognize these are truths of our history, and we must accept them. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Ray McGusson, Quant. Just a couple of things. Through the chair, Mayor, Mark Kibbe. The last meeting I brought up the 2 dead trees. I want to thank you very much, and the DPW for knocking those 2 dead trees down. And I believe the citizens around that area appreciate that. I also want to go ahead and wish you all happy Thanksgiving to you all and to all the citizens out here. On another note, through the chair, Mayor, to Mark, or whoever you can address this, if we're going ahead and redoing our streets, I notice a lot of the streets are already repaved, but I don't really see any new drains put in. Are we looking at really that situation where we don't have a drain for 100 feet, or however long it is.
New streets that we're installing?
Yes, I've seen it already. The same drains have already been put in, but no new drains have been put in. There's no new drains really being put at the corners, which really astounds me, which is some places the lowest area of the street. So I'm just asking if that's something that we're planning to do moving forward, that we can really address that issue to try to get the water off the street and into the drains. I mean, I really think that that's something that we should really look at, you know, and not just assuming there's no drain there and all we're going to do is just go ahead and re-concrete the area, redo the street, but don't add no more drains. Because I remember at a meeting many months ago, I brought this up and they said the key thing is to get the water off the streets. If we get them off the streets, then we won't have the cracking and everything else happening. So I would just, if we could look at that. With that, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Good evening. Bob Lloyd, Allen Park, Robinson Avenue. I don't know, maybe Mr. Hayes misunderstood my comments. I don't think there's any question that I was convulsed by the fact that we were under emergency managership. I'm convulsed by the law itself. I'm convulsed by the fact that the people of this state voted on a referendum to repeal the act, and the state within weeks passes another one. I'm convulsed by the fact that emergency manager was appointed just days before we had a millage that could have put us in better shape. But I want to assure Mr. Hayes, I teach a unit on city government, and believe me, we cover the emergency manager. We cover the problems that led us to emergency managership. We cover the fact that we essentially lived in this city without representative government, and that does bother me. She left 54 orders, I believe, and according to the law, those orders are to be in effect until 1 year after we are out of receivership, which will be February of 2018, I believe. Many of those orders give Allen Park limitations on what we can do, but then they're followed by, unless we go to our tab, and our tab will essentially allow us to go beyond that order. So I called the State Treasury Department. I actually spoke with two people. I don't have their names with me now. They had to call me back because our tab doesn't exist anymore. I don't understand how we have any way to reconcile a problem we have. If the order says we must do this unless the RTAB essentially says we can go against it, how can that happen if RTAB doesn't exist? And I went around and around, and I was told, well, it's like a law. You got two independent clauses, and when one's removed, the other one stands. And I disagreed. I said they're codependent because one offers us reconciliation. And Ms. Parker left here quite quickly. It was days before the gubernatorial debate, and Governor Snyder proudly announced Allen Park was no longer under emergency managership, yet they left a city administrator here who essentially acted, in my opinion, as an emergency manager, did not inform this council about what was on the agenda, went against our city charter. And to me, it was politically expedient for her to leave at the time she did without letting anybody know, and yet still leave us under state control. And that did upset me. It still upsets me, and it will always upset me. In my opinion, the state, I don't believe, treated us fairly. And no, I don't want to hear about it. That doesn't mean I don't teach it. I teach it each time we study the unit on the city of Allen Park. Thank you.
Any other citizens? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Take a motion to approve the payroll report, the October 17th finance overview, budget to actual report, balance sheet, cash flow, and the parade permit for the belated Christmas parade.
Motion, Mayor.
Support. Councilman DeGiulio is moved and supported by Councilman Templin.
Yes.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Move to resolutions. The proposed street,
Claims and accounts.
where am I?
Now we claims and accounts.
We pulled that to do separately.
Oh, I'm sorry. We did pull a separate account, excuse me. Make a motion to put the claims and accounts before the council.
Motion.
Councilman DeGiulio is moved. Do we have a second?
Support.
Supported by Councilman Templin. Councilman DeGiulio, your questions, please.
I just have one here on, under administration, on page 1, under insurance deductibles, Michigan Municipal League pool claim deductible. We've paid $15,000. Can anybody tell me what that's about, or what it's for, or who it's against?
Can you hold this one? I don't see it on the list there, and I gotta go, I'll have to go check.
Yeah.
I don't think it's.
Oh, you mean it doesn't help you to look at this?
No, because she didn't put down the name of it.
That's what I was getting at. There was no name on it, so that's what, usually there's a name attached to it, but there's no name attached to this.
Can we just hold that in abeyance and move to Resolution 1, motion to the proposed street asset management plan? Can I have that, put that before council?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, can anybody else ask any questions about
Oh, I'm
claims and
sorry.
accounts?
Okay. Excuse me.
Okay, that's okay.
Councilman Cisco.
Yeah, so under finance, Mr. Katie's back there somewhere, I think. Or Amanda's back there somewhere. We have an, under city auditor for Plant Moran for $20,935. And I just want to bring this back to, I had brought up many months ago that we had paid Plant Moran $4,000 I guess in advance for hiring one of their employees. And there was supposed to be a document that somebody was supposed to sign that gave us that $4,000 back, because we then hired them as the city auditor. So I don't know if this number is inclusive of that $4,000 being taken out or not. And oh, there's Mr. Katie. He must have been hiding behind a pole back there or something.
I try.
So, and anyway, I'm just trying to find out if this number is accurate to that $4,000.
That 4,000 was the only payment we made on that before we met with them and decided that, you know, everything goes away if we could work out a deal on a contract for the audit. This bill right here is for, I think it's 50% or 60% of the audit completed to date, and it's strictly the audit.
And that's for the 20,000?
That's at 20,000.
20,935. And just to stay on that for just a second, so there is, under city auditor, another Plant Moran bill for $3,500 for the administration of streets and major street fund. So is that a separate issue?
They break the audit out, and we charge by departments that they work on, so.
That was for the Act 51.
Yeah, they have to do an Act 51 audit also as part of the streets.
And I believe the state's actually found that it is not proper to have that done, and they'll be reimbursing the cities for those costs.
For the Act 51 ones? Well, that's good news.
Yeah, but you will see the audit, we'll break it out. Water and sewer will get charged, different departments will get charged for the work, because the general fund shouldn't bear all the work when they're doing work for other funds, so that's the way you'll see it as it finishes up.
All right, so we're at 20,935 for Plant Moran, and the $6,274 for the major street fund, and the not going to exist anymore.
We should see that money coming back from the state.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. I have one other question.
Yes.
So, under Parks and Rec, I believe, there's a line item for $8,400 for John Deere. It says equipment maintenance. Is that correct? $8,400 for, or is that something totally different? Is the line description correct or not?
It's actually a capital improvement that was assigned that pay to, it's in the budget for $25,000, but it was assigned the wrong number.
Okay.
We picked up on it today.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions before we go back to Mr. Councilman DeGiulio's? Okay. The Administrator?
Yeah, that deductible was for a lawsuit filed by Sam Laturco. And I believe that case has already been settled out.
What was that about? Do we know?
I don't have enough detail in here. I believe it was
It's been settled?
against the police department, if I'm not mistaken. And it was, they did settle that one out.
Well, it got settled after we went to the MML?
Yeah, unfortunately, the process works that way, is our deductible will be paid no matter, they collect that first off the bat.
Is that right? Or they collected first off the bat and then, okay. So it's the police officer's lawsuit. How many do we have against the police department?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think we're about 4.
4?
I believe. I will update the litigation report.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions by council? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Now we'll get to the resolution to put before the council the proposed street asset management plan. I'm not certain what we're requested there, Mr. Cady. Can you help me out?
Mr. Hammond on this one. This is a requirement, the asset management plan is a requirement to be able to essentially transfer funds from Act 51 major back to local at a percentage. Right now, you're limited to 50% can be transferred from major to local. This will allow us to exceed that. And the recommendation, as I was talking to Amanda on this, would be to, always approve a higher amount, because you can always go backwards, you can't go forward. Once you get past a certain point, you can't transfer any additional monies. So the report here kind of outlines the PASER report, which is the pavement surface report that grades the roads out. So a new road will be a 10 the first year, then automatically goes to a 9. They have different levels that go down to a 1 or a 0, which would be a crumbling gravel road, which is still transversed. know if we had any zeros here.
You get a few that say 0, but I'm not sure the exact
Beverly-
reason why they're,
Beverly comes to mind
Yeah.
as possible of a 0.
yeah.
Or a 1 at least. The worst of the worst are in that 0, 1, 2, 3 range. Unfortunately, we have quite a few of those. So this is actually what we then judged off to be able to go back and do street sectioning, street improvements for the millage, street improvements for the block grant. It becomes the baseline report that we work off of. Every community should be doing them.
Yes, you are-
Unfortunately, it's kind of a rare thing.
You are required by law to have a street asset management plan. They have yet to do it, but one day I think they will, so they'll start holding back your Act 51 funding if you do not have asset management plans for the roads in your community. And basically, this is what this is. Like all asset management plans, the first part of it is, what you see is the inventory. And the sheets behind that is all the streets, all the segments of streets in the city, and they all have been rated or given a surface condition rating, saying, you know, it's 1 through 10, 10 being, you know, brand new, to 1 being the, like Mark described, the very, very worst. So you've gone through, you got your inventory of streets, you've assessed the streets and say, look, you know, these are the good ones, these are the bad ones. So now the next step would be to, how are you going to approach it, or have some goals to get these streets, basically get your PASA rating from like a 2 to a 3 to maybe a 4 or 5 or a 6 down the road. And that is on page, where we talk about that is on page 33. It is a 3-year plan, and we look at the Act 51 allocation, how much that each fund receives from the state, and then you have your road millage and how it is divided between those two, what the money that you get in your road millage. You can see that most of the road millage goes to local streets. The biggest percentage of their budget goes to capital maintenance, which is removing and replacing and doing sectioning and things like that. It's on page 33. And then under major streets, usually major streets get more money from the state, so usually they're in better condition because you obviously have more funding to do repairs. So we've spent more time doing maintenance on those small sections, and some joint sealing and things like that. And then only 28% is used for actual capital maintenance, which is removing and replacing a street. So that's how the money is allocated across all your funds, and saying this is what we're going to do over the next 3 years. And then we have some goals. What we want to do is we want to do all kinds of types of fixes, called the mix of fixes. We want to do actually street replacement. We want to do sectioning. We want to do joint sealing. We're all in the process of trying to preserve all these streets. And so the first goal is over a 3-year period to improve the pavement condition to at least 25 of all the local and major streets will require only routine maintenance. So you're looking, almost got 100 miles worth of streets. So you want to attain the goal of having 25 miles where basically all you have to do is just maintenance on them. You're not removing and replacing and doing sections and things like that. At the end of the 5 years, after doing what we got, well, not quite what we have for 5 years, we only have 3 years on here, but at the end of 5 years, we want to have 40% of the streets. So basically 40 miles that all you're doing is just regular maintenance on. And so those are kind of you have the inventory, you have how the money's going to be spent, and what your goals are. What they call, another way of they call it is level of service. What are you going to provide, you know, through all this funding? What are you going to provide to basically to the residents that use the streets? So you're saying that we're going to have an upward trend. We're going to go from having only 25 miles of streets that we have that we just do maintenance on to 40 miles by the year 2023. So those are your goals that you're going to do. And then basically the rest of it is just says the street administrator is responsible for doing a lot of this, doing the reports, and that person who will report to council on the progress at least once a year of how you're doing on this plan. So basically that is, and it also allows you to have much more freedom in how you transfer funds between major and local streets. Right now, the best you can do is 50%. If I remember correctly, you can do up to 100%. You can transfer the whole 100% of your major street fund into local street fund to do projects. So that gives you that flexibility to do that. So one, this is required by law, that you have to have this, and two, this gives you, with the state, more flexibility of how you're gonna spend your money, how you spend the money you get through the gasoline tax to maintain streets. So, and that's basically it, unless there's any questions.
Any questions by council?
I had a question with, for example, Park Avenue. It's bad.
Yep.
Getting worse.
Yep.
That's considered a major street?
Yes.
So with this transferring, I know you said you can transfer it to the local. Once it's there, you can keep it local. Can you use that money if you need it for a major road?
Yeah.
But
Well,
you can't take it after the fact from a major to a local, right? Or what's, because I don't want to take all the money out of the major and then
No,
we're
yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, no, that was just to,
Once you can transfer up to 100%. Right now, you can transfer up to 50%.
Right.
Which we do.
Right.
And then you can do up to 100%, and then you can go backwards as well. But you can't pass the deadline and then try to transfer. Once you hit a certain deadline, you can't transfer any additional money.
Okay, so even though it's gonna come into a local road fund, it's still eligible for a major
Back to
road
the
if
major,
something
yeah.
comes up, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
It just gives a lot of flexibility.
yeah, it just makes it easier to reach your goals.
Any other questions? I think I understand what the motion should be. I got page 33, which had all the activities we were supposed to do. Somehow it wasn't in the packet when I printed.
Yep.
And so the proposed street asset management plan does have the allocations and everything in it. So I think the motion is to just accept the proposed street asset management plan. Moved by Councilman Rourke. Do I have a second?
Support.
Councilman Gavricki is supported. Any further discussion by council? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you very much. Second item is a resolution to approve the lease between Cabrini High School and the City of Allen Park Parks and Recreation Department. And I think we got a lease agreement dated November 13th, which was slightly different than the one that was originally sent. Does everybody have that before them?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to put the lease?
Support, Mayor.
Supported, moved by Councilman Rourke, supported by Councilman DeGiulio. Is there any discussion of this matter?
Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Katie recommend that we pass it, correct? They're both happy with it? Mr. Hawkins? Yes. Okay, thank you.
And we've reviewed the new part of the lease. Where's the attorney?
Yes, in fact, it was a recommendation I
It
made.
was a change that Joe had recommended.
And that was a statement that's mutually agreed upon. That was the change.
Right,
with-
the prior verbiage, in many respects, would have been an automatic renewal, 5-year renewal. And whereas the way it's drafted now, it would be a renewal upon mutual agreement between the parties.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That's carried. The resolution to authorize the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Munitrex for the transparency edition for $4,439.70 contract, I guess.
of which the state will reimburse the city for half that amount?
Correct.
Motion by Mayor
Support.
Pro Tem McLeod, supported by Councilwoman Gavrecki. Any discussion?
I have something, Mayor.
Councilman DiGiulio.
I see there's two different ones here. Now, one is for 443970, and then there's another, like a premium plan for 637005. What is the,
After I reviewed what they offer in the premium plan, I didn't feel that we would be able to utilize all the things that are in that to, there's still a lot of things that have to be loaded by staff, and, you know, it's just me and Amanda, basically. So, and a lot of the things there are more for budgeting tools and that, for helping us, not really something that the public would see. I was really interested in getting something out that the public could see, and, you know, I'm really big on transparency, so this is just another tool, and it not only lets let people see how the city's doing, you know, from 1 to 10, basically, on a scale, but it lets the public also compare our city against other cities. And it'll also offer tools like traffic data and crime statistics and all the dashboard stuff that the state likes to see. And the reason we forward it now is if we approve this before December 1st, the state will pay for 50% of it.
so the 637005, the higher one there?
Yeah, I didn't feel at this time we'd be able to utilize that.
That won't make us more transparent?
No, it was really more tools
Same
for.
amount of transparency?
No, the stuff that the public sees is basically all in the basic package.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions by council? Comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor,
Thank you.
signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Cady. The third reading of the proposed ordinance, and at this point, we would have a public hearing, am I right?
Well, and I'd like to correct that. We've always written it on the agenda as a public hearing. However, if you read the way it's supposed to be passed, it's public comment. So you don't need to open a public hearing. You could just have a third reading and open it up for comment. And the whole, as the attorney and I once discussed, it can't be adopted unless the public has a chance to comment on it, so.
All right, so for the third reading, I'll ask the city attorney to do the third reading for us, please.
Proposed ordinance 06-2017, an ordinance of City of Allen Park Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 26, Offenses, Article 8, Offenses affecting underage persons, Division 3, alcoholic liquors by the repeal and readoption of Section 26-497, possession by person under 21 years of age, to make this section consistent with state law.
And I'll open it up for public comment or questions at this point.
I only had one comment, Dennis Hayes, Carter. I take notice that they spell the word offenses with a C, which according to my understanding is the British-Canadian approach, and being as we are still situate in the state of Michigan, City of Allen Park, I wonder if we shouldn't consider using the proper OFFENSE. Thank you.
You find that offensive?
Yes. I'm Irish.
Where is it?
Spelled wrong here, but not here.
Yes, Ray McGusson Quant. Joe, through the chair, Mr. Covier, can you just explain a little bit what this means? I mean, I was at the workshop, I know what it means, but just so the public out here just understands a little bit what it means.
Sure.
Thank you.
So there, when you have a minor who has, and really anyone, the question is under what circumstance can a police officer ask a person or actually coerce a person into taking a breathalyzer? And under some prior case law, the prior legislation was deemed unconstitutional. As a result of that, the state amended the the process wherein you can ask a minor to take a breathalyzer test. This ordinance here just makes our local ordinance consistent with the state law. And it also gives minors a break in that the first shot, first time they're caught, it is a civil infraction rather than a misdemeanor. This is not designed to encourage youngsters to drink, but rather to, if someone makes a mistake, they get one break.
Any other comments by the public? I will close the public portion and ask the council for a motion to adopt the ordinance 0620.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cisco.
Supported.
Councilman DeGiulio is supported. Is there discussion by council?
One quick question.
Councilman?
Just with alcoholic liquors versus beverage versus beer, wine, liquor, does that make a difference with?
No, well, it's designed to be as very encompassing, to cover all of them.
I know, but if you pull over and the guy says, I was just drinking beer, I didn't have liquor, I didn't have whiskey, I didn't have, what's the definition? It's not explained in here that I didn't see it, of what a liquor means. So I was just, I mean, it was just.
Well, I
something-
think beer is considered alcohol.
Okay, but I don't work at a bar, or, whatever, but when
Right.
people ask for liquor, it's different from asking
Yeah,
for.
again, this is consistent with the state law, and we don't want to,
Okay, I'm just.
yeah, we're not,
I mean, it
we don't
just
want to
came out.
rewrite it.
Okay.
We don't want to, so.
I would just say to the councilman, it would be ill-advised that you opt out saying, I did this, because then you're subject to a bigger fine and a misdemeanor rather than a civil, so that would be mistake two that you made that evening.
Okay.
I may have heard that.
Any other questions by council? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by, whoop.
Mayor, I'm going to do a roll call. Okay, this is the final reading of adoption of ordinance number 6-2017, an ordinance amending chapter 26, offenses, but with an S in the future, Article 8, offenses affecting underage persons, Division 3, alcoholic liquors, by the repeal and readoption of Section 26-497, consistent with state law, shall this ordinance pass. And with this roll call, we'll start, Councilman DeGiulio,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gavarecki,
Yes.
Mayor Mategas,
Yes.
Councilwoman McLeod,
Yes.
Councilman Rourke,
Yes.
Councilman Cisco,
Yes.
and Councilman Templin.
Yes.
The ordinance has passed and shall be ordained. It will be published in a manner affected by law.
Thank you. We have a closed session coming up, and that will take a roll call vote to go into closed session. Before we do that, since we don't have other business listed here tonight, I do want to wish everyone on behalf of the council and myself a happy Thanksgiving, and remind you again about the Christmas parade this Friday and the open house at the historical house at the corner of Englewood and Park, which is where the parade also starts at 6:30, but their event starts at 6 o'clock with a Christmas lighting. So, with that, I'll ask for a motion.
Mayor, if I might be able to make a comment on other business.
Excuse me?
If I might be able to make another comment on other business, normally we have.
We don't have other business because of the scheduling of the closed
But
session.
it says other business.
Right there.
It says other business.
I don't know what agenda you're looking at, Councilman.
Well, right where it says other business, that's where we were supposed to have council comments of sorts. And since it's other business and there's a couple other things under it, I would assume that our comments are
I
still.
see where you're going. Well, as the third lawyer at the table, I'm going to grant everyone other business, and we'll delay the vote to close session. Councilman Cisco.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that, you know, the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission is having a vote this week. And 3 people have been nominated by the unions. And I'd like to point out that Mr. Lloyd has accepted one of the nominations. And I'm glad to see that, Mr. Lloyd, as we've talked over the years about involvement from all our citizens. And I think that's a good positive step forward, and you would make a fabulous commissioner, if that's what they're called. So I congratulate you on accepting that nomination. And that's all I'd like to say.
Other comments by council? I will ask for a roll call vote to go into closed session for the purposes of labor negotiations and pending litigation as permitted under MCL 15268, parens C, closed parens, and parens E, closed paren.
I'll make my motion for that.
Support.
And I'll support them, or somebody down the road there will support them.
Somebody down the road.
All right. I have a motion by Councilman Templin, supported by Councilman Gavareki, to convene into closed session for the purpose of labor negotiations and pending litigation as permitted under MCL 15.268, subsection C and E. Shall we enter, in this roll call, we're going to rotate Councilwoman Gavareki,
Yes.
Mayor Mategas,
Yes.
Madam Pro Tem McLeod,
Yes.
Councilman Rourke,
Yes.
Councilman Cisco,
Yes.
Councilman Templin,
Yes.
and Councilman DeGiulio.
I'm thinking.
Ken.
Yes.
All right, the vote is unanimous. We shall convene in a few minutes upstairs.